Well, about 4 months ago, TT Artisan released their first ever autofocusing lens, I think. And here we are with what I believe is the second one. And this time it's a 35mm f1.8 APS-C autofocusing lens. Now, do we need another 35mm? I don't know, but this one for the money is going to be hard to beat because it comes in at a very, very competitive $150 US. So let's check it out. Now this lens does come in a box, but I can't seem to find it. Perhaps I just got it loose in the mail, as this is a pre-release copy of the lens, but I've been handling so many lenses lately that I may have misplaced it. It did come with a USB-C ported rear lens cap and a plastic front lens cap. Lens construction seems to be aluminum and glass. It's good. It's not as premium as some all-metal lens bodies. It feels just a little simpler and less refined, and there's not much going on here in the design department, but it's adequate. Starting at the rear, there is a metal mount, electronic connections, no weather gasket, no weather sealing as far as I can tell. The body again is simple, the lens specs etched in that Leica font here. A focus ring occupies most of the body. Now the focus ring is smooth, it's electronic, so it rotates freely. It does feel good, but again, not overly refined or premium. I think if they had done a different grip or maybe put some design elements on this lens, it would have made things a little more interesting. Around the front, there is a relatively small front lens element, TT Artisan logo, minimum focus of 0.6 meters, lens specs, and 52mm filter thread. As far as what's inside, I have no info on that, so if you are curious, I'll add a link to the description of this video so that you can read more about it. Mounted on my A6100, this is a compact, easy to pack, easy to carry around combo. It feels well balanced and it doesn't look that bad. And because I knew there was going to be a lot to photograph on our trip over to Switzerland, I just threw this into my backpack and I figured maybe I can grab some shots with it. And I did. So all of these are from my A6100 uncorrected, straight out of the camera. Let's see what this lens can do. Ready, set, go. Alright, so this lens is very similar to that 27mm f2.8, if I'm remembering it correctly, that was just released. Optically, this is pretty good. It's sharp in the center, sharp in the corners, colors are great. Really not many complaints with the f1.8. You do get some nice bokeh as well. I'm not going to spend too much time on the optics. I won't do any sort of comparison with a Sigma because really, if you're shopping for this lens and you're looking at this lens, there are 4 problems that you need to be aware of. And some of you may consider these deal breakers. Others may dismiss all 4 of these and still pick this thing up because it's not bad. But let's go over those 4 things. Number 1, this lens does exhibit barrel distortion straight out of the camera. If you are just shooting and uploading straight out of your camera, then you can expect to see some curved lines if you're shooting at a brick wall, for example. Easily correctable in post, but if you don't like editing in post, then that may be an issue. Number 2 is the chromatic aberration performance. It's not horrible. It's not the worst that I've seen. It's not the best that I've seen either. It's not as good as some of the newer Sigmas that are coming out. This lens is kind of somewhere in the middle where it's not horrible again, but it's not amazing either. I would rate it let's say a 6 out of 10 in terms of chromatic aberration. You do see it pop up on high contrast areas. Number 3 is the flare performance on this thing is crazy. I've never seen flare like this before in my life. It's like a figure 8. It's crazy and nuts and might be cool if you want something different and something unique, but it might be distracting also. It does affect the contrast of your image. But it certainly does come out with bright light sources. And this lens did not come with any sort of lens hood. Number 4 is, you guessed it, the autofocus performance. Now I'll start by saying that this lens is significantly better than the first one that they released a couple of months ago, because that one was very loud and noisy when it came to autofocus. This one is nice and relatively quiet. You hear the faint sound of those motors moving. I'm guessing it's some sort of stepper motor. So it's an improvement in that regard. And I also think that it's a little bit more responsive than that other lens. It's a little bit quicker. However, there are moments where the autofocus on this lens just simply doesn't want to focus on what you want it to focus on. Now, with most of these camera bodies, they do a very good job of picking up eyes. So even if you have some stuff around, you have bushes, whatever it is, leaves, they can pick out an eye and they can focus on the eye. But with this lens, that seems to be a bit of a challenge. But beyond that, I also had a lot of photos that were ever so slightly out of focus from my samples. And that just came from me quickly snapping them and not paying too much attention to where the autofocus landed, but it didn't land where I wanted it to. And I noticed that too when using this lens, that usually you have a whole bunch of green little boxes pop up. Green boxes pop up with this one, but far fewer green boxes pop up. Sometimes it picks up like the corner of something on a high contrast area, but not the main object. And in general, tracking performance was not quite up to something like a Tamron, Sigma, Sony, etc. Now, if you are planning on using this lens for a simple YouTube setup where you're just recording yourself in a room, it probably will do pretty well. In fact, here it is mounted on my A7C and in my YouTube studio. Now you'll see some crazy vignetting because this is not designed for a full frame camera, but as far as tracking performance, I mean, it's not quite as quick and sometimes it goes a little bit in and out, but this is perfectly usable. If you're gonna stay in place and talk about whatever you wanna talk about and not move too far forward and back, this is a perfectly capable lens, and it's also very quiet. It's not making tons of noise, unlike some other ones. So I'm gonna make that same conclusion that I did with the original first autofocusing TT Artisan lens. It's not one that I'm gonna run out and buy and use to replace all of my existing Sigma lenses. However, I will say again, for the money, this thing is remarkably good. And if you compare a 35mm F1.8 manual focus lens versus this is way easier to use, and I will take those few couple of shots that are out of focus over the many more that would be out of focus if I was trying to manually focus each and every shot, and think of all the time that you saved. So this is definitely the way of the future when it comes to TT Artisan. I think other companies as well should follow suit. The autofocusing performance, I'm guessing, is probably only going to get better with each new lens and each iteration. And also because it comes with this USB-C dock lens cap, I'm guessing that TT Artisan will release firmware updates that will continually improve, hopefully, the performance of the autofocus systems. I could see this maybe as being the ultimate budget autofocusing lens setup. You get an A6000 for $300, you get this thing for $150, and you're in $450 and you're away, off and away, shooting awesome stuff and recording awesome videos. So there is some potential with this lens for sure, and hopefully it gets better over time. Special thank you to TT Artisan for sending this thing out pre-release for review. Thank you guys so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.